This is Roger Stone for American Sovereign Bullion. Since 2020, the U.S. dollar has lost over 20% of its purchasing power. Meanwhile, gold continues to rise. Call 844-272-2428 or go to asbgold.com now to get your free gold and silver guide and learn how to protect your wealth with physical gold and silver delivered to your door or held in a gold IRA today. So go to asbgold.com now. Don't wait for the markets to drop. That's asbgold.com.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome. Yes, I'm back. It's the Roger Stone Show. I was in Washington, D.C. most of last week. Had an opportunity to see the president, the vice president, a number of other high-level officials in the Trump administration. You know, James Woods, the actor, said recently, everything that's wrong is staring us in the face in this country, and half the country simply will not join us in fighting and fixing it. It's infuriating, it's depressing, and it's maddening. It seems to me the closer this Iran war comes to a favorable resolution, the more garishly negative the left wing gets, fervently wishing for the enemy to prevail. Why? Because the left is also an enemy of our country. They are the fish-faced enemies of our country. They want the operation to fail so they can reclaim power and resume wrecking and looting the United States of America. By the way, that's exactly what a favorable outcome for this war would look like. As Iran that doesn't threaten nuclear jihad and doesn't sponsor endless terror operations here, there, and everywhere, it looks like we're going to have exactly that. Iran's choice is now how deep they want to take their own economic collapse before capitulating. If they just stop now, they'll still keep the lights on. They could be a normal, modern, developing nation without a death wish. Anyway, the paradigm Iran was operating in was a rogue state, and that is now dead, especially the malign influence of Britain's banking and M16 intel matrix. Britain, proven by its actions to be not a friend of the United States, Britain, a wretched little island empire with bad teeth, overrun by wrathful Islamists, and alas, soon to be a caliphate. President Donald Trump has rearranged the geopolitical landscape with startling speed and efficacy. Much of Europe, it turns out, are not our friends either. They simply would not let us use the NATO bases we pay for to conduct our air operations over Iran. Hence, NATO is 4 dead letters. They can go dangle while they figure out how to live without oil, possibly go back to their century-old condition as a non-stop slaughterhouse, besetting each other with stupid age-old feuds. From my point of view, it's not our problem anymore. China? Their Belt and Road isn't what it was just 6 months ago. Donald Trump has kicked them out of South America. Their oil supply is suddenly pretty sketchy, at least affordable oil. Notice they didn't lend a hand helping to steer clear the Straits of Hormuz. Turned out that the radars and the air defenses they gifted Iran didn't work too well. So Uncle Xi will have to go back and rethink the situation. Donald Trump says he might travel to Pakistan this weekend if there are papers with Iran ready to sign, and Bibi Netanyahu has made that pretty clear. That makes him not very happy. Israel and Lebanon announced a 10-day truce to sort out where things stand. Both of them want Hezbollah expelled for good. Anyway, Hezbollah can no longer enjoy financial support from Iran, meaning no more munitions or salaries for Hezbollah warriors, including essentially meaning that Hezbollah is out of business. A major regional irritant has been neutralized. Can you dare to imagine a peaceful Middle East? So things have changed up greatly in this long, volatile corner of the world, and that will leave Mr. Trump free to attend to the discord and animus back here at home. namely the psychopathic Democrat Party's nonstop demolition of political norms with assistance from the bureaucratic deep state and the NGO underworld. Donald Trump now needs to determine to what extent taxpayers have financed their attack on America with our own money and catch up with those in California and Minnesota and Michigan who have been defrauding the taxpayer out of billions with non-existent social welfare organizations. Just at hand this week, we have the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, sending a criminal referral to the Department of Justice on two key players, both liars, in the Trump impeachment number one, former Intel Inspector General Michael Atkinson and the CIA agent whistleblower Eric Ciaramella, whose name the news media still fears to speak. That impeachment over the so-called Ukraine phone call was from the start the finish of a complete fake, a criminal conspiracy. It involves a much larger cast of characters, including then House Intel Committee Chair Adam Schiff, then Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, CIA Director Gina Haspel, Chief Justice John Roberts, and virtually the entire Kyiv U.S. Embassy staff at the time. Everybody involved was lying about one thing or another. The case is on Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche's desk right now, and the question is, what will the Acting Attorney General do about it? I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's been 258 days since Tulsi Gabbard did what CIA Director John Radcliffe would not do in Trump's first term, which is to say, declassify the documents demonstrating that the entire Russian collusion thing was a hoax which almost destroyed me and my family, not to mention my good friend General Michael Flynn, but more importantly President Donald Trump, who they tried to keep off the ballot, who they tried to break financially, and who they tried to send to jail. It's rumored that in the weeks ahead, President Trump is fixing to conduct a declassification orgy of evidence unearthed by the Department of National Intelligence and directed by Gabbard in the serial seditions run by U.S. color revolutionists over the past decade. The presidential declass will obviate the usual tedious process of extracting declassification permissions from every agency silo with a stake in the documents, meaning that the evidence will go straight to the U.S. attorneys, including Jason Redding Quonez, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, now reportedly running a grand jury out of Fort Pierce on the Russian collusion hoax. This week, we learned that the veteran prosecutor handling that in Quonez's office had been fired for slow walking. And the good news that Joe DiGenova, a former D.C. U.S. attorney and a true American patriot, will join the Justice Department with oversight in the Russian collusion hoax matter. Many of the players in that treasonous escapade were involved in the subsequent crimes across the nation. The 2020 election fraud, the January 6th federal government-provoked insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, the fake House committee set up to pretend to investigate the January 6th events, the outrageous raid on Mar-a-Lago, as well as the multiple Trump prosecutions of 2024. Not to mention the censorship of his campaigns and the manifold perfidious turpitudes of the Joe Biden administration, including the massive invasion of illegal immigrants. I think more than 26 million illegals coming into our country. It's all going to come out in one overwhelming puke stream channeled into actual prosecutions. The only question is, will the missive revelation of truth prompt the millions of successfully brainwashed Americans across the country to finally get their minds right over what has been perpetrated on our country? No, I say to my friends at the New York Times, and I use the word friends loosely, it is not about revenge and retaliation. It is about justice and accountability. As we look to the 2026 elections, I can tell you that the people who voted for Donald Trump in 2024 want to have accountability and justice for those who violated the law and the Constitution in their manic effort to get Trump. And they want an examination of the 2020 elections and the truth regarding the hundreds of thousands of mail-in ballots, allegedly mailed-in paper ballots, that suddenly popped up at 3 o'clock in the morning in 3 swing states. Tip of the hat to James Howard Kunstler. These words today are his, not mine, but they are so brilliant that I had to read them to you. Thanks for joining us today in the Stone Zone. We're going to have some bombshell news for you. There is an upcoming special report on Congressman Corey Mills of Florida. Corey Mills makes Eric Swalwell look like Mother Teresa. We'll be right back with the news.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back in the Roger Stone Show. I want to note a congratulations to Jonas Jackson, who was one of the producers of this show. He is my brother in Christ. He's an enormously talented individual. He got a big promotion within the organization, but he will succeed at anything he does, but we will miss him here on the Roger Stone Show. Well, I guess I finally got to Laura Loomer. She doesn't like the truth very much. She has now banned me. She's blocked me on social media. She, of course, tried to pull a fast one last week, and she got busted. She convinced President Donald Trump, either directly or through an intermediary, that the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, was about to resign in protest of his decisions regarding the war in Iraq, and that was not true. It was categorically false. Loomer was urging the president to preemptively fire Gabbard among the very best of his appointees. Remind you again, it was Tulsi Gabbard who finally declassified the Russian collusion documents proving there was a seditious conspiracy to take down Donald Trump that included Barack Obama, Joe Biden, John Brennan, James Comey, Rod Rosenstein, and a multitude of others. Fortunately, rather than taking the bait, President Trump reached out to me to ask me what was going on. I assured him that not only was Gabbard not going to resign, but there was no reason to terminate her. She had served him well. In fact, she declassified the documents which CIA Director John Ratcliffe could have declassified at the end of the previous administration, the previous Trump administration. The president was told that CIA Director Gina Haspel would not allow that. I asked you simply to look at a chart of organization of the government. The Director of National Intelligence is above the CIA Director, and it is impossible for Haspel, one of Trump's very worst appointments, a protege of John Brennan, the Islamic convert, who is one of the key orchestrators of the Russian collusion hoax, to veto that. So after an extraordinary back and forth social media war, in which I pointed out that Laura Loomer had been institutionalized twice before for mental instability under Florida's Baker Act, well, perhaps the third time is the charm. She calls herself an independent journalist, an independent investigative journalist, but the problem with that is every word, every syllable, every grunt on her cable show on Rumble, or whether it is online, is paid for by someone, some corporation, some individual, somebody with an axe to grind, either to destroy someone or to promote an idea. Now, let me be absolutely clear. I don't accuse her of violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, because I really doubt that she has taken money from any foreign power. That said, I think that wealthy American Zionists prop her up. She's actually introduced me to some of them. They could be being reimbursed by Israel, but I don't assert that they are, because I don't know that they are. but we should not pretend that this is coming from her heart, or that it is altruistic. By the way, when she accuses me of being soft on the Muslims and soft on the Islamics, she knows better. She knows better. I'm opposed to Sharia law as she is, but I'm not privy to the intelligence that President Trump is privy to, and he made a decision to attack Iran not once but twice, Operation Midnight Hammer, and then secondarily in this more recent military operation. And it appears to me that we are on the verge of peace. He told Bibi Netanyahu, enough's enough. I think that peace will soon be at hand. I still think the regime will be toppled when the people have no food. They tend to get rather unruly. I also have to tell you about an incredible experience I had this week in Washington. I went to the Watergate Hotel, checking in kind of late at night. There were two guys behind the desk, a younger guy and an older guy. And I said, I have a reservation. The younger fellow said, name please. I said, Roger Stone. He said, have you ever been here before? And the older guy started laughing, couldn't stop laughing. Then later I was walking through the lobby of the hotel the next day, and of course I was wearing a extremely well-cut Savile Row double-breasted suit and a Windsor collar, a spread collar shirt and tie. I thought I looked pretty natty, and an African-American woman came up to me and said, Your Majesty, what are you doing here? I said, what do you mean I live here? She says, oh, you have a home here and in England? And I said, I'm not sure I understand. She said, she looked at I travel with a security guy. She looked at the security guy and said, oh, I understand, sir, you're here undercover. I said, wait a minute, do you think I'm Prince Charles? And she says, I know you are, but trust me, I won't say a word. Now, this used to happen to me a lot when my hair was a little darker, a little curlier, and so was his. And remember one time coming into LaGuardia, landing, getting into a cab. Cab driver was Indian, from India, and he kept looking at me and looking in the rearview mirror, and finally said to me, Your Majesty, what, you're traveling without security? I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you're Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales. I said, no, I'm not. He says, believe me, sir, your secret is safe with me. When we arrived at my apartment, which was then on the Upper West Side, and the tab was, $26, I tried to pay him, and he says, no, sir, I could not possibly take anything from the crown. Sometimes it's not so bad to be Roger Stone. You're listening to The Roger Stone Show. We'll be right back. We're going to talk to Chris Mazzy. His family was put through hell in the weaponization because he was a Trump supporter. He's got quite a story to tell, and we're going to let him tell it. Don't go away.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Roger Stone Show. Until you have been the target of a weaponized Justice Department with a political motivation but unlimited legal authority and unlimited financial firepower, you really can't understand it. And such is the case of our next guest, Chris and Aaron Muzzy, a conservative California family who were railroaded by a weaponized PPP prosecution out of Hawaii. Their assets were seized, their home was lost. Aaron went to prison, and now even though she's back, but on a federal ankle monitor confinement, her husband Chris is still facing prison. But Chris is with us today to talk about this ordeal. Chris, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger, and thanks for having me back. And actually, Erin is with us too, so if you want to have some questions for her, I know she wants to share her point of view of this whole ordeal.
Well, that is great to hear, and I'm glad to have her join the show as well. So, Chris and Aaron, kind of lay out for us what happened to your family.
Yeah, so prior to COVID, we had very successful business, thanks to actually President Trump's first term and all the things he was doing, and we we're in the process. We had developed this TV series called Ohana. We're in pre-production. The series was about basically organized crime and government corruption in Hawaii. And then COVID hit and everything kind of fell apart with it. And at that time, I just started reaching out to different banks and loan originators. Unfortunately, at that time, I was listening to the Today Show advice, and they said, reach out to any and everybody. They're not going to put you in jail if your application isn't 100%, I's dotted, T's crossed. And so I didn't apply still. I still wanted information because that's the type of person I collect the information. And I reached out to a couple different of our local banks, and they said, you know what, this is still a new program. We don't know how it works. We're not doing it right now. So then just started going online and reaching out, and a loan originator for one of the banks that actually funded our loan said, you know what, you can use projections. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound out of character because we've had traditional SBA loans in the past that when you get a normal SBA loan, they ask for anywhere from 18 to 24 months of your projections. Did that, started getting everything ramped back up to shoot in Hawaii. We actually did shoot a teaser trailer in October of 2020. And we had a small crew, but all those guys had been out of work for 6 to 9 months. They were all working on Magnum PI or NCIS, a lot of the CBS shows that's over in Hawaii. They were thankful, even for our little small shoot that they worked for a week or so. After that, we were getting ready to go back over to Hawaii because we're from California, but go back over to Hawaii in summer of 2021 to possibly start doing the pilot for the show. And May, right before, we got a surprise with a target letter from the DOJ. We first didn't even know what it was about. And then a lawyer, we had to scramble to find an attorney to call this business card that we had received. And that's when we found out this is for PPP, which shocked us all because everything that we thought we'd been doing was completely by the book of what the loan originator and the bank said to do. At that time, that's when they, we looked on our online banking, we had no money. And then the lawyer said, they also put a Liz pendant on your house. So even though you have $1 million in equity and you bought this house in 2017, you basically have no way to fight. We weren't charged for a year later. So this, Erin's a big researcher too. She looked it up and saw that they're supposed to charge you or give the seized funds back within 90 days, which they didn't even follow their own handbook. We fought for years. Court-appointed attorneys over in Hawaii are a little different story. There's one that's works with the court, but all the other ones are a panel of attorneys. And if you look up their day job, they're basically personal injury attorneys on this panel. And I equate that to, getting ready to go in for triple bypass and they gave you a dentist to handle the case. All said and done, I mean, the judge gave Erin 27 months, gave me 36. His only reason was to deter. I mean, that's what he said. He said, we're not a threat. We're not, the majority of the money was paid back, even though we still have a restitution order for the full amount. So tell me, Roger, where that money went that was paid back. And, I'm supposed to go in probably around August of this year. So, that's kind of what happened. There's more about what the prosecutor did, but that's kind of us in a nutshell, our life the past 5 years.
We'll come back to the prosecutor in a minute. Speaking of someone who had the FBI raid my home at 6 o'clock in the morning, 29 heavily armed, fully SWAT-clad FBI agents wearing night goggles and brandishing fully automatic M4 assault weapons, you would think that I was bin Laden. In fact, they sent more men to take me down than they sent to take bin Laden down. So I have to ask Aaron, what was the hardest part of self-surrendering and going into custody?
I think for me, just first and foremost, if I didn't have faith in God, I wouldn't have gotten through this experience. It was difficult, I'm not going to lie. At the sentencing hearing, the judge was only going to give me a week to self-surrender. My attorney pushed back and he got me 2 weeks. Normally, I believe people in this situation that are nonviolent first-time offenders, white collar, they get anywhere, I believe, from 6 to 8 weeks to self-surrender. During that time, you're designated to a facility and you're allowed to get your affairs in order. So I had 2 weeks. Honestly, I felt like I was preparing to die. It's really a weird feeling to get your affairs in order if you haven't done it before. Chris and I own a business, so we're kind of a divide and conquer sort of couple. He has strengths and I have strengths, and so we like to play to those strengths. I was doing a lot of the day-to-day operations in our business, and I had to basically write instruction manuals for him to be able to do all that while I was gone. Not to mention figuring all our finances and passwords and make sure nothing would fall through the cracks. Unfortunately, we hadn't told our kids anything up until that point. At that time, gosh, when all this started, I think they were, how old were they? 8 and 10?
Yeah.
Or 7 and 9? 7 and 9 years old. So through the whole process, we didn't really know what was going to be the outcome. We didn't know what was going to happen. And I guess part of that was denial and just not understanding how the system worked, how the federal DOJ worked. So we told the kids when we got home from the sentencing hearing, you know, in broad strokes what was going on in age-appropriate terms. And it was really emotional. You know, they didn't understand what was going on. And we tried not to use the word prison. That's a very scary word, especially to young kids. And I was going to a camp, a minimum security camp, so we just told them I was going to a camp. The judge actually had me self-surrender to the marshal's office, which, again, is not normal. So when I arrived there, they didn't know why I was there. I had to explain that I was self-surrendering and had to produce the paperwork showing the judgment that that's where I was supposed to be. I had a few minutes to say goodbye to Chris, and then they shackled me and put me in a cell for 3 hours while they figured out what to do with me.
Aaron, what? Go ahead.
Sorry. Once they figured out I was just going to spend time in county jail, they transported me shackled to the county jail where I was processed. But it took them 20 hours. So I sat in a holding cell with everyone else coming into county jail for 20 hours. They threw a couple sack lunches at us. The room was filthy, if you can even call it a room. There was literally dried feces everywhere. Toilet in the middle of the room, a metal bench, some pay phones, and I think there were probably a dozen of us women in there. Some people were sleeping on the floor. It was definitely shocking, to say the least. So in county jail, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
In county jail, I would equate it to Sodom and Gomorrah. I was in there with gang members, drug addicts, prostitutes, people in there for domestic violence. I witnessed fights, drug withdrawals, sex going on all around me. I would not wish the experience on my worst enemy. That's how bad it was.
Of course, you were accused of a first-time nonviolent crime, which is the most outrageous thing about it. Where did you go from county?
From county, I was transported overnight to a private prison. And then they took me to a minimum security camp in Victorville, California. And once I got there, compared to county, that was a cakewalk, honestly. And it was a different experience, but with that said, the conditions weren't great. The staff there is very apathetic. There's limited programming, mass punishments, basically the status quo there. So if one person got in trouble, we all got in trouble. Inadequate medical care, that's a whole different conversation. I'm just thankful that I was healthy, because I would not have gotten the attention that I needed. And I think we were served cold food more times than I can count. What was devastating to me was Chris was not approved to visit me. The reasoning for this, according to them, was because he was my co-defendant. So just in these circumstances, it's a one-size-fits-all formula. They don't take a look at your individual case, why you're there, your history. Chris and I have been married now for 18 years, but at that time we'd been married for 17 years. It just didn't really fit the mold. So the fact that I wasn't able to see him and our children for over a year was really emotionally difficult.
So I guess I have to ask this, how are your kids, well, first of all, what's it like now that you're on home confinement with the ankle bracelet?
It's very restrictive. Physically, I cannot leave the house except for medical appointments, which is interesting because I did spend a month in a halfway house, and I had more opportunities to leave the halfway house than I do here. So that's disappointing. Emotionally, it is an adjustment. I came back to a house I'd never been in before. Both Chris and the kids don't look the same from when I left. And so it just took me a while to articulate what was going on and what I was feeling. But I think, I'm grieving for the time that I missed with them and the home that we had. That was all literally taken away from me overnight. So release isn't just relief, it's impact. I went from a controlled schedule, limited choices, and survival mode in prison to coming back home to making decisions again, pressure of the real world, and then having past expectations of where my life left off and where we go from here. None of us are the same, and we never will be. Our oldest son, Luca, had to start therapy while I was away. He is a generally happy kid, but he started having panic attacks and just really bad anxiety. Little things set him off. And it just, as a mother, I just can't describe it, how helpless I felt, especially when I was away. There was nothing I could do. So we're working through that and working with him. And I have to give them credit, though. They're a lot stronger than I think I initially anticipated. So. All
right. We have to take a hard break, and we'll be right back with my friends Chris and Aaron Mazzei with this horrific tale of harassment and weaponization. Please don't go away.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back on the Roger Stone Show, only the hottest political show on radio today, right here on the Red Apple Audio Networks. And we're talking to good friends of mine, Chris and Aaron Mazzei. This is just a typical California family who were railroaded by a weaponized PPP prosecution out of Hawaii by the Department of Justice. Their story is a horrific story of the justice system gone wild. Chris, I want to ask you, you had former FBI agent Mark Bowling take a look at your case. This guy ran 4 different task forces for the FBI. What was his view of what happened to you and your wife?
Yeah, so I actually got invited to go to Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago by Weaponization Watch and ended up at the Capitol, which was surreal in itself, and my 2 boys were with me. And Colonel Rob Maness, I was talking with him, and he introduced me to Mark. And while I was getting into my conversation with Mark just about everything that they did, how the 90-day seizure playbook that I mentioned earlier, and just how the coerced plea deal where the prosecutor was going to supersede more charges and also threaten charges against my mom, who had nothing to do with our business at all. And then when I got into what the prosecutor did with our house, where he basically had it in a forbearance, or we had it in a forbearance, but they had it under forfeiture. And then a week before our sentencing said, we don't have an interest in the house anymore. Let it go. And then he forced it with the bank into foreclosure. And then they were at the auction. I have the text messages from my friend who was at the auction bidding on the house, basically saying, I've never seen this before, but there were federal agents at the house bidding on your house. At that moment, Mark Bowling basically said, stop. Like, we need to trade phone numbers. I have never in my life heard such weaponization, and just like, I don't even know the word he used. He was very pissed, to say the least. He's like, if I would have had anybody under me doing any of that kind of stuff, my agents, or if I would have heard anything about a prosecutor doing that, I would have taken it to the top and I would have made sure these people were fired. So that was very reassuring, because anybody that's going through this prosecution, I was just talking to someone the other day, like, you have like that 1% split second, like, wait, did I do something wrong? And then you go back through the course of what happened. You're like, no, I didn't. And then just to hear that, and I've heard from a few other people that are higher up, or former agents or prosecutors, and we're not crazy. Like, this is, I mean, it's just ridiculous what they did. So it was just reassuring, Roger, like, to hear that.
So I guess the ultimate answer here, of course, lies in the hands of the President of the United States. There is some discussion of another group of clemencies, pardons, and commutations, hopefully sooner rather than later. What would you like the public to do in terms of letting the President know that you and your family need help?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously, President Trump has seen this firsthand. So have you, Roger. So, I mean, we're appreciative. Like, people that don't witness this firsthand don't know just how evil it can be. And I just, President Trump, if he doesn't know our story, he can't help. Like, that's basically what it boils down to. It's textbook weaponization. For me personally, yes, I've been working my tail off, and as you know, Roger, and I do it very creative, like how you and I met, and just I put a billboard by Mar-a-Lago. I run some kind of 30-second spots just to get President Trump to know our story. So if anybody...
All right, Chris, I'm afraid we got to leave it there. Thanks for joining us on The Roger Stone Show.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to The Roger Stone Show. Several members of Congress are slated to be expelled from that body next week. Sheila Sir-Phyllis McCormick, the now extraordinarily well-known Eric Swalwell, Tony Gonzalez, a Republican of Texas. But I submit to you that there's a fourth member who should be expelled. He's a member of my own party, and that is Congressman Corey Mills. Joining us now is someone we're just going to identify as CJ. We're not going to tell you her real identity because, well, Corey Mills is known for violence. and you don't want to put her life in risk. But she is among the very finest and respected researchers in the country, who's worked for many famous people and institutions, and she is incredibly meticulous. And she has prepared a report on Corey Mills, which will curl your ears. I submit to you that Corey Mills makes Eric Swalwell look like Mother Teresa, and therefore this is not about partisanship. Yes, Swalwell deserves to be expelled. He was driven from the California governor's race. Tony Gonzalez is a Republican, but for his actions, sexual abuse of his own members of his own staff and others, he too should be expelled. Sir Phyllis McCormick is involved in a massive financial crime, stealing from the taxpayers of the United States, but Corey Mills is something special. So, CJ, thank you for joining us. We're not going to reveal your real identity because I don't want to put your life at risk. Her report was commissioned by the Earl E.T. Smith Republican Club of Palm Beach County, Florida, because they wanted to know the truth about Corey Mills. A lot of representations have been made to them about this case, but today you're going to hear the truth. So, CJ, kind of lay out for our listeners, if you will, what your special report on Congressman Corey Mills revealed.
How are you? So thank you for having me today. When I started the report, I didn't know how to tell the story because it was rather voluminous. I didn't know whether I should go chronologically or with what was occurring in the past 48 hours, and I decided to go with level of audacity as the best way to organize this paper. So Corey has made the press, unfortunately for him, this weekend, but I want to focus first on something that happened in 2014. In 2014, Corey Mills was in Falls Church, Virginia, and he was going to marry a woman by the name of Rana. Rana is a Iraqi-born, naturalized U.S. citizen who happened to be a translator for the administration. And they decided to get married, and the imam that was marrying them was a man named Mohammed Al-Hanoudi. And Mohammed Al-Hanoudi's claim to fame is he is number 67 on the list of 172 unindicted co-conspirators for the 1993 bombing of the World Trade Center that killed 6 people. Corey Mills has made a career of saying that, he got the Bronze Star and he had a lot of service to his country. And we are to believe that in 2014, he did not know Al-Hanoudi's presence, what his beliefs were. He did not know that was tied into a mosque, Dar Hijra, I believe the name was, that had political ties to Islamic extremists. So I'm questioning the man's judgment. That leads us to what's going on this weekend with the...
Well, kind of an obvious question, if I may intercede. If he chose to get married by an imam in a mosque, is it reasonable for us to presume that at the time he was a Muslim?
I would say that is a fair question. And I thought about it, from a researcher standpoint. I'm supposed to be unbiased. I want the research to be so compelling that you draw your own conclusions. And I would say that if a Catholic got married in St. Patrick's Cathedral, one would also draw the same comparison. So now, we live in a society where things can be very fluid, and maybe he's changed his personal stance on religion. But at that time, it was a very strict policy for people to be married through that venue that they must be Muslim. So I found that a little bit peculiar. As we fast forward through the timeline, we'll go to what's making the press right now. And so there are claims that the footage is out of this body cam of an altercation he had with one particular girlfriend, Sarah Raviani. And I say one particular girlfriend because there seems to be an overlap. And fair enough, that's his personal life. What is apparent is that there is still images of a police officer questioning him, and there are statements that were made by Sarah Raviani that there was, in fact, a physical altercation in Washington, D.C. She later recanted her statement, saying that the both were drinking and she was under stress, and the marks on her arm came from a trip to Dubai. Fair enough. But if we fast forward to August of 2025, we have another woman, an up-and-coming star named Lindsay B. Langston, also in her 20s. And Lindsay B. Langston comes to find out that Corey Mills is dating other women, and they might have a volatile relationship, but it didn't end well. Corey sends text messages to Lindsay stating, I'm going to release our sex tapes, and, he makes some threats against people that Lindsay's dating or if she chooses to date, and Lindsay was scared. So she went and she got a restraining order, and she was granted that restraining order. And I can only imagine as a woman what these 20-year-olds are going through, because I know in my 20s, if someone said to me, hey, I'm going to release a sex tape of us, I would be very upset. I wouldn't know what to do. In my 40s, if you were to say, hey, I'm going to release a sex tape, I would say, please do. I'm sure I look amazing, and I will sue you into generational wealth. I mean, I will take everything that you have. And what I noticed was this pattern that strikes me as very abusive of Corey Mills maybe taking advantage of people in a lesser position or having less experience with the world. And that was very disappointing, because this is a man that's supposed to help make decisions for the country, especially our party. So, I can continue if you like.
No, please continue, because I want a fuller picture here. We have plenty of time. I guess an obvious question is what happened to his wife?
Well, it's not that she's fallen off the face of the marriage. They are separated. He says, and he recently said, there's a video on X that he was not married, and he can use that definition of the circumstances. And he also went to say that he did not harass any staffers. And once again, if we just pick on the vocabulary, he in fact is not lying, because they're not his staffers that have made these claims. They're women who he dated personally, but seem to have violated, common decency. There's some other claims that I find very bizarre. There was a claim that he had hired sex workers during a trip to extract a woman by the name of Miriam and her family in Afghanistan. And the trip itself is documented, and there are photos of him on the trip. And what I cannot find evidence of to support is that he was hiring sex workers, not on one occasion, but on many occasions, and was told to stop. Now, I have peeled the internet. I have peeled private sources or sources that you're only allowed to get to through membership or affiliation. I cannot find any evidence of that. So I know that he may not be well liked, but there is no substance to those claims. There is substance to what Lindsay said about him and what occurred in that video, which we still only have the still shots. In keeping with the astoundingly poor decisions that this man is making, I'm going to switch gears to the more financial stuff that he is involved himself in. He has not paid his rent. He is so back in rent that it is $85,000 due to a management company named Bozzuto Management. They have filed papers against him in the Superior Court in the District of Columbia. I have the case number here. But again, this is someone who is supposed to represent, his constituents and the party well, and not paying the rent in a luxury building and owing $85,000 is just not the best look. $85,009.80 total rent due from March of 2025. Let me see the case number. We don't have the case number, but it's regarding the 1331 residences notice to pay rent by February 26th of 2025. So that's a little disappointing. But I get, here it is. The case number is regarding parcel 47F, and it's 2025 LTB 006854.
Let us speak now to, obviously you've determined a lot about his private life. Are there allegations of inappropriate or, in fact, violent conduct with women?
Say that one more time, you broke up.
Evidence of violence against women or other inappropriate conduct with women?
Oh, that is for sure with what I've found. With the two incidences with Sarah, as well as with Lindsay, I would say that this is not a gentleman that I would want my daughters to date.
All right, let us speak now to the question of stolen valor. We have about 36 seconds, and we'll come back with more of CJ and her findings. But stolen valor, to me, is among the most egregious things. I did not serve, but I have great reverence for those who did serve. CJ, we're not using her real name today because I don't want to put her life in risk, has compiled an extraordinary report, which will be sent to every member of Congress as they consider expelling Corey Mills. Corey Mills voted with the Democrats only weeks ago on a crucial matter to try to buy time and perhaps make some kind of a deal to avoid being expelled from the House, but that's not likely to happen. We'll talk about it on the other side, right here at The Roger Stone Show, so don't go away.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back on the Roger Stone Show. It's only the hottest political show on terrestrial radio today. And, of course, you can hear us online as well. We're talking to, we're just going to call her CJ. She's one of the most respected researchers in the country, has worked for many, many famous people. But out of respect for her safety, because Corey Mills is known as an extraordinarily violent individual, don't want to put her life at risk. She has done a comprehensive 48-page special report on Corey Mills that will be sent to every member of Congress as they consider expulsion. Making bad choices in dating when you're separated from your wife, that's one thing, but there's a lot more here, isn't there, CJ?
Yes, there's a hell of a lot more, and I'd like to read you an excerpt written by Lindsay Langston, the woman who filed a restraining order and got a restraining order, and it's in her own handwriting. And the question was, describe the nature of the relationship. And she wrote, I've been in a romantic relationship with Corey since November of 2021. I recently had moved in with him in his Florida residence. In February of 2025, he was involved in a physical altercation with another girlfriend whom I was unaware of, and it made the news. I moved out of the house and attempted to move on with my life. Corey has since threatened to physically harm anyone I date and blackmail me with nude images and videos. She goes on to say, Question 8, imminent danger. Petitioner is a victim of dating violence and has a reasonable cause to believe he or she is in imminent danger. And Lindsay writes, Corey has cyberstalked and continued to make threats to harm me emotionally, physically, harm my future, my romantic partners. And forgive me, her handwriting is a little bit hard for me to read. Harm both romantic partners verbally and in writing to ruin my public image. He's reaching out to organizations to speak at events I have to attend as a way to, forgive me, her handwriting is a little bit hard to comprehend. I think intimidate, and an investigation for assault of his other girlfriend is underway. So from those two questions that Lindsay Langston answered in order to get her restraining order, she's clearly referencing the issues that occurred with Sarah Raviani. Now, I find Sarah a very interesting character because I have some text messages between her and Corey as well. And, these are ladies in their 20s, and it's just a shame as someone, older, reading them, the position that he's put these women in. And so this is Corey's communication with Sarah Raviani via text message on a thread called New Year's Fun, where Corey Mills says, "And you will be a good girl and do anything he wants or asks." And Sarah writes, "Of course, I aim to please." And Corey writes, "He can have you as many times as he wants, any way he wants, and finish anywhere he chooses. Right, babe?" And Sarah writes, "Yes, baby." "And what can you not do?" writes Corey. And Sarah writes, "Won't say no to anything Chris wants." And Corey Mills writes, "Yes, babe."
Wow, that's shocking. Shocking. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about Congressman Corey Mills, supposedly a conservative Republican of the 7th District of Florida. In coming days, the U.S. House of Representatives will consider expelling him. He has been endorsed by President Trump, who I think was unaware of any of this, and he has not yet, to my knowledge, filed for re-election. But we'll talk about the politics on the other side. We're listening to The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks, and we're on fire here, so don't go away.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. It's the Roger Stone Show. Glad to be back after a week in Washington, visiting the President, the Vice President, a number of other cabinet officers, and getting a first-hand read on the situation regarding the war. And, of course, I'm a political animal, so I'm most interested in 2026. A delicate balance in the House, but we're focused today on Congressman Corey Mills. Corey Mills makes a number of claims about his military record. There's some interesting things about his financial background. I think there's a high probability that he will be expelled by the U.S. House of Representatives, along with the reprobate Eric Swalwell, Congresswoman Sheila Phyllis McCormick. She just got caught stealing from the American taxpayers. Spent it on some beautiful jewelry, though. And, of course, Tony Gonzalez, who made inappropriate sexual advances to members of his own staff and others as a member of Congress. But Corey Mills should most definitely be on this list. We have no fear of losing that seat if he chooses to remain in the race. There is a self-funding, very, very wealthy, 100% MAGA patriot standing in the wings, ready to file for the seat to represent the Trump America First agenda. But my fear is if that does not happen and Corey Mills is expelled, he still, by the way, could run for the seat again. Adam Clayton Powell Jr. did that from Harlem, but trust me, Corey Mills is no Adam Clayton Powell. Plus, he's about 3 feet shorter. Anyway, so we return to our guest. She is a widely respected researcher. Today, we're going to call her CJ because I have concerns about her personal safety. Corey Mills is known as a violent individual. CJ, back to you for the breakdown on Corey Mills.
So before we get into the stolen valor, I think the last bit of his personal life is Sarah Raviani just recently gave birth, and congratulations to the new mother. I'm sorry it's under these circumstances. The paternity of the child is yet to be unknown, and what's sad about this whole thing is the text messages. I mean, is Corey Mills a new dad? Do we send a gift? Is it the gentleman Chris that's labeled in the text message? I mean, it's just such a sordid situation when it should be a new mother's most exciting time. So it's rather unfortunate, and I wish the new mother and whoever the father is all the best. But moving on to the stolen valor. So there have been issues with Corey Mills and him saying he has the Bronze Star. There's no question he has the Bronze Star. It was from incidents back in 2003. The paperwork was done retroactively in 2021, and Mills claims he saved the life of 3 servicemen: Alan Babin, Joe Haidt, H-E-I-T, and Joseph Ferrand. And all 3 men have no recollection of Mills coming to their rescue. The Army Form 638 includes a signature from then Army Brigade Commander Arnold N. Gordon Bray. The now retired Brigadier General Bray has stated to multiple outlets that he did not sign that recommendation for Corey Mills. I've never served, and I'm not of the military, and stolen valor is a very serious accusation. I think that we, as a general society, whether you're Democrat or Republican, we should really look into these claims. I think that if he, in fact, did, serve with such distinguished bravery, that it should be put to rest. And I think that an official inquiry should be made on whether or not he deserved the Bronze Star. And this leads to him operating in another capacity. Much of his career was spent working with contractors when he was overseas, and he has since formed a company, and forgive me on the pronunciation, but it's PASM or Pasham Defense, also affiliated with a company called ALS, which I will get to in a moment. But he has rebranded his life as a international defense contractor, very Lord of War, and they owe about $50 million to a Canadian lending group. So that's first and foremost in keeping with the pattern of not being the best at paying the bills. I mentioned a subsidiary called ALS before because they make rubber bullets for less lethal, and those bullets happen to end up in the hands of the Hong Kong police when they were doing riot policing. So, again, I just wonder how involved Corey Mills is in the decision-making process and whether or not he recognizes that this may just not be the best look for someone who is representing all of us. Maybe he should take a step back and reevaluate some of the decisions that he's making. And the last thing that I want to say, which I saw the papers and I find this very disturbing, is before Kash Patel became FBI director, Kash Patel had and still has the Kash Patel Foundation. And in 2023, in his private capacity, Kash decided that he was going to donate to many organizations that were helping Americans around the world get out of some sticky situations. After October 7th, some Americans were stuck in Israel. That's just one example. And the Kash Patel Foundation donated $20,000 to an organization called Never Forgotten. And Never Forgotten is affiliated with Corey Mills through the avenue of everyone on that board is also on the board of Pasham Defense. They are not strangers to each other. Now, Kash Patel documented that transaction correctly on the 2023 forms, the 990s, which I've provided in the report. Oddly enough, that $20,000 does not show up on Never Forgotten's report. So I said, well, maybe it's a mistake. Maybe it's not documented correctly. And I went and I looked at every possible way that it could have been a mistake. And I'll lead with, you can say that the donor is restricted and hide their identity, but you have to post the amount, and it's not there. So I just find this continued pattern of questionable choices and operating in such a gray zone that I leave it up to whoever's listening or whoever's reading the report to find if the evidence is compelling enough to say that maybe this is someone whose decision-making process is faulty and should not be representing the party. And thank you guys for having me on.
We appreciate your candor and your hard work to pull all of this together. All of this, by the way, is backed up with documents. We have a copy of his marriage license, a number of other documents. All of this will be provided to every member of Congress as a vote comes up next week to expel Corey Mills. And again, there is no danger of losing his seat unless Corey Mills is the Republican nominee, in which case you can be absolutely sure that all of this information, which is in the public domain, will be used in a campaign against him. I hope Speaker Johnson recognizes the importance of expelling Corey Mills, just as it is important that they expel Tony Gonzalez. I mean, this is not a partisan question. I think when members overstep the line and the law, they are not fit to serve in the U.S. Congress. And the only thing I'd like to say to Corey Mills is, hasta la vista. All right, CJ, I want to thank you for joining us today. I ask you to look over your shoulder because Corey Mills is very well known for his claims of violence. He's a tough guy. He's a real tough guy. Stand up, Corey Mills. Oh, you are standing up. All right, thank you very much for joining us. You're listening to the Roger Stone Show. Here's some good news. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is now actually preparing to interview multiple witnesses as part of a criminal probe of former CIA Director John Brennan. This is a move that is long overdue to ensure accountability for the origins of the original Russiagate conspiracy. The investigation, led by the Justice Department, is revisiting how the 2017 intelligence assessment was crafted, and it is this, of course, was a claim that on which it was based on this claim that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to put Donald Trump in power. As President Trump has said for years, it has now been proven by the release of classified documents by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard. This hoax was designed with clear intent to undermine his presidency, and few are more culpable of this than John Brennan. Brennan is, of course, a Muslim convert, converted to radical Muslim, Wahhabism actually, when he was the station chief for the CIA in Riyadh. He's also, interestingly enough, the man who signed the visas for 4 of the 8 hijackers who we believe attacked the United States in 9/11. According to reports, prosecutors are now focusing in part on John Brennan's 2023 congressional testimony with allegations that he may have made false statements about his role in the controversial Steele dossier. Now, the Steele dossier was a complete and total fugazi, was a report that was paid for actually multiple times. I give the hoodlums at Fusion GPS credit. They sold the same report 3 times, first to Paul Seeger, a rhino who was attempting to use it to elevate the candidacy of Marco Rubio over Donald Trump. Marco Rubio's a different man than he was then. And the President's right, he may go down in history as one of the greatest secretaries of state that we have ever had. Then, of course, they sold the Steele dossier to Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton tried to hide it. She claimed the billing for it, she claimed, were legal fees. She normally paid enormous fine to the Federal Election Commission for that. Had she been a Republican, of course, she would have gone to prison, but we have a 2-tier justice system in this country. The probe here was sparked by a referral from Congressman Jim Jordan, who accused Brennan of misleading Congress. Investigators have already issued subpoenas and conducted initial reviews, with more expected in the days to come. Brennan, a frequent critic, you can see him on cable news. He's an extraordinarily arrogant guy. He always looks, when you look at his face, he looks like somebody just broke wind. I don't know, he's got this weird kind of bitter look. But the probe in actuality is really about restoring trust in our intelligence agencies after years of partisan abuses, making a mockery of the entire rule of law. No one knows this better than me. My lawyer spoke to the special counsel the day before they raided my home at 6 o'clock in the morning. In fact, I turned over 30 pages of email text that shows that their chief witness, Randy Credico, was a liar, and he perjured himself at my trial. But, of course, that doesn't matter because in the District of Columbia, when you're in front of Judge Amy Berman Jackson, the law, the rules, the precedents, the truth, none of these things matter. All that's mattered is their agenda, in which the judge is actually just another member of the prosecutorial team. Thus far, none of the Russia-Gate conspirators have been made to face trial. The journalist John Solomon, for whom I have enormous respect, says that it's coming. I hope that he's right. I pray that he's right. He's bet me a steak dinner online that he is right. He can't really pay for a steak dinner as a journalist, but we'd at least go Dutch if he's right. And I really want him to be right. But there are those deeply, I should say, high up in our own Justice Department who do not want these prosecutions to go forward. They undermine the prosecution of Letitia James for mortgage fraud, but more importantly, they undermined her prosecution for federal tax evasion, which should have been a case that should have been brought in Albany, upstate New York. But somebody at the Justice Department turned that off. We'd like to know who that is. We're praying for justice and accountability for those who tried to destroy Donald Trump, tried to keep him off the ballot, tried to break him financially, tried even still to send him and members of his family to prison. Perhaps we're almost there. You're listening to Roger Stone right here in the Stone Zone of the Roger Stone Show. We're definitely in the zone. Don't go away, because we'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Back in the Roger Stone Show, looking at our email here, someone asked, is Jonas Jackson one of the Jackson 5? No, he was not one of the Jackson 5. I hate to disappoint you. He's much cooler than anyone of the Jackson 5. All right, so we've disposed of that. Newly declassified transcripts from the House Intelligence Committee are shredding the claims of the underlying impeachment, actually showing that the origins of the first impeachment was completely and totally bogus, an entire fugazi, as we New Yorkers say. The documents detailing closed-door 2019 testimony from then Intelligence Committee Inspector General Michael Atkinson showed that the so-called whistleblower was not some neutral figure portrayed to the American people. Instead, records show that Atkinson was a registered Democrat with a prior professional connection to 2020 Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who was, of course, a veritable vegetable in diapers, heavily sedated through most of his presidency. Despite these clear political ties, Atkinson testified that he found no evidence of bias, largely relying on the whistleblower's own claims of impartiality. Even more concerning, the transcripts confirmed that the whistleblower had contact with the staff of Democrat-led Intelligence Committee chaired at the time by Representative Adam Pencilneck Schiff, now a U.S. Senator from California. Before filing the complaints that ultimately triggered impeachment proceedings, that contact was never disclosed on official forums, raising new concerns about coordination behind the scenes. The complaint itself was filed just weeks after President Trump's July 2019 phone call with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, suggesting a rapid sequence of events involving undisclosed congressional involvement. At the time, of course, Democrats and much of the media insisted the process was driven by a credible, nonpartisan insider. These newly released records tell a very, very different story, that the impeachment effort was politically motivated from the get-go. Now the DOJ must prosecute those individuals who concluded to undermining a sitting president, abusing power in the most grotesque of ways. Nothing short of treason charges here will suffice, and of course the penalty for treason is capital punishment. The Vindman brothers, you know them, Alex and Eugene. One of them is a member of Congress. One is now running for the U.S. Senate in my home state of Florida. They should both be charged because they fabricated all of their claims against President Trump. Now, this impeachment action it was both proactive and reactive. It was both defensive and offensive. You see, it was Joe Biden who told the government of Ukraine that unless they buried the prosecutor who was investigating Hunter Biden in the matter of Burisma and the payoffs taken from Burisma. I had a great conversation with Bob Costello, one of the most respected former federal prosecutors in the country, who deeply believes that Joe and Hunter Biden took enormous payoffs in the Burisma matter. I think I'm happy to see that thanks to the House Intelligence Committee, we're going to finally get to the bottom of this. I can tell you, it's not fun to have 29 heavily armed FBI agents storm your home at 6 o'clock in the morning when you could have just turned yourself in. Mrs. Stone still has PTSD when things go bump in the night. It is a nightmare from which you think you will never wake up. But I will say this. I may be much, much poorer materially for this horrific experience, but I am much, much richer spiritually. Now, when I declared that I had been redeemed in the blood of the cross, I returned to the church. The Washington Monthly made fun of me, saying, it's just another dirty trick, another pose by Roger Stone. Let me say this. I don't really care what they think. I only care what he thinks. Thank you, and God bless you for joining us today on The Roger Stone Show. Until we meet again, God bless you, and Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?